Welcome to Frisco Public Library's Career Development Series. Today's topic is virtual interview etiquette with local expert Sherilyn Dorsey. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Sherilyn Dorsey, CEO of People Development and Training and proud Frisco resident. I'm so grateful to be partnered with the Frisco Public Library on the Job Readiness After 40 training series. Today, I'll be talking to you about virtual interviewing etiquette. There's one main objective that we have here. So by the end of this presentation, I hope to have provided you with pragmatic tips and tools that give you the competitive advantage in the job market. We have 3 agenda items, and we'll start right at the top. First, we'll review electronic equipment. Second, we'll discuss professional setting. And thirdly, we'll talk about personal preparation. As it relates to that electronic equipment, use the most reliable device with the best camera available. And I know sometimes we take that for granted, but it's important that we're aware of any glitches that we have and are known in our devices so that we don't use them when interview time comes. We want to make sure that that device is dependable. You also want to make sure that on the device that you wipe the camera off to ensure that they have the best possible view of you on the interview. Now, if it's necessary, remember the library has computers with cameras that you can interview on. Be sure to check operating hours to see if that's an option for you. Next, you want to make sure that you find out in advance the virtual platform the interview will be conducted on and practice. Now, we take for granted that the virtual environment will be one that we're familiar with. And I think at this point, we all know about Zoom. But there are many different options out here that people are having interviews and meetings on and webinars, etc. So we don't want to assume one thing and it ends up another. Just go ahead and ask in advance. That way you'll know and you can practice. You want to make sure that you know how to turn the camera on and off, that you know how to use that mute button. And then for your own computer, just be sure that you're familiar with how to turn that volume up and down, because that ensures that you can hear them well as the interview is being conducted. The other advantage that gives you is one of confidence. You know the platform, you're ready because you've practiced beforehand. So now all you have to do is go in and be the professional that you are on the interview. Next, take the call in a location where there is reliable internet. So in the midst of all of this, we've learned that the internet can be sketchy, that signals can get crossed or blocked, and really that sometimes the internet can be slow because more people are on it in a condensed area. So if you know these things, for example, that internet being sketchy, maybe in a certain part of your house or in a certain room or at a certain location, be sure that you avoid that for the interview. Be sure that you get in a place that in the past has proven to have a reliable connection, uninterrupted, and go and broadcast from there. Remember, the library has computers and rooms it is that you can use if you need to make sure, if you don't have any other option for a reliable internet connection. Next, we'll talk about professional settings. Alrighty, so a quick rule of thumb it is that I have and how we want to make sure that we're always posturing our mind is to be cognizant of the background and the artwork. Because of the virtual environment it is that we're in, everybody can see everything that's behind us, right? So we want to make sure that it's a professional environment it is that we're setting ourselves up in. So a quick rule of thumb again is I go to a corner of my home, right? So if necessary, I go to a corner because very often in that corner, artwork is not close to that because we don't tend to put artwork over into the corners. It prevents anyone from walking behind you. We don't want those surprise interruptions, right? And when you go to a corner, you reduce the amount of space it is that's behind you. So it becomes a lot less convenient for someone to walk behind you, right? I talked about that artwork. And because the artwork is not positioned most often closely to the corner of the wall, you don't have to worry about rearranging it, right? So the wall is usually blank. You don't have anything to distract your interviewer from paying attention and focusing in on you. Next, we want to talk about your seating. I highly recommend to you that you use a chair with a supportive back. Now, that may be something that's obvious, but oftentimes we take for granted the fact that when we find ourselves sitting in a position for an extended amount of time, we tend to slouch. We tend to wiggle a little bit more. We tend to do things that we don't want to do in a professional setting. So when you have a chair with a back, it usually prompts you to sit up straight, sit forward, pay attention, right? It keeps you in that position so that you can maintain your professionalism throughout the duration of the interview. Next, we want to talk about being camera ready. So, in being camera ready, you are ready to accept that call or interview in a quiet space. Note, most interviewers expect that there may be some distraction due to the pandemic. We all get it, we're all going through it. So, I don't think that they are so rigid that they wouldn't be able to understand that. But you want to make sure that you minimize those distractions in advance by preparing the people who are around you, perhaps in your home. If there are small children, even sometimes the adults can end up being disruptive. So you want to make sure that you let them know in advance. Be sure that when you are on the call with them, that you are making good eye contact. So you want to be looking directly into that camera. Now remember, it's nothing weird. However, you should maintain the same eye contact or connection that you would in consistency with a face-to-face interview. Next, you also want to make sure that you have good lighting. While you shouldn't need to go out and purchase a ring light, there should be a standard of good lighting. So that means if you're in a room, say for example, with dimmers, you want to make sure that light is all the way up. You want to make sure that you people can see you. And if you don't have that in your home or wherever it is that that you typically would take a call from, you may want to again check out the Frisco Public Library. They have great librarians who can get you set up. You just let them know what it is that you need, and they actually have rooms it is that you can use for this very thing. So there is nothing standing in your way of the success it is that you seek. Another tidbit I want to make sure that you are aware of is to be sure that you center yourself into the camera. You don't want to be off to the side. Remember, we discussed that slouching. Sometimes we can find ourselves doing that unconsciously. We want to make sure that we're aware that we're sitting up straight and that we're ready to take the questions it is that they pose to you. Next, we want to talk about, and I don't think that this should be missed really in any presentation about anything, and that is personal preparation. So when I say that, I'm talking about you, the person, not the things it is that you need to do in preparation for the interview, but the things it is that you as a person need in order to be your best for this interview. And the very first thing it is that I recommend is that you take it easy. Take a deep breath and believe in yourself. Have the confidence it is that's needed that got you to this moment, because the things you've done in the past have given you the experience that says they want to talk further with you. Rest in confidence of that. So when you do that and when you are preparing, I strongly suggest to you that you take 5 deep breaths before starting your interview, and repeat your favorite mantra or affirmation before you go in, right? So great big deep breath and say something maybe like, I believe in myself and the ability to succeed. Okay? If that one doesn't work for you, find one that you believe, right? And say, just take those 5 deep breaths and go in there and wow them. The next thing you want to do is set expectations. And what that means simply is to remember that you are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. So you want to let them know in advance that you have pen and paper and that you are taking notes to ensure that you don't miss anything that's pertinent to you following up on later, or perhaps that you may have a question about. You want to make sure that you are capturing all of that information. And it's okay to set that expectation. They may see your head go down in writing. Have confidence in that. You're doing what it takes in order to make sure that you have the information you need to succeed, right? So set that expectation in advance. I highly suggest to you that you have a cup with a straw and some water in it so that you can sip on during the interview. Interviewing can sometimes be extensive. And if you've been practicing beforehand or talking beforehand, you can absolutely get parched. And there can be a random cough or whatever that looks like. I don't want you to overlook that. Take care of yourself as you are going into this interview. Now, it's up to you if you want to set that expectation for them that says, please pardon me as I take a sip of water, or I have my water here on the side and I'm ready, whatever that looks like for you and whatever feels best. But I don't think that that's out of line. And I only think that it will serve you. And then if there are any distractions or extenuating circumstances, just take a deep breath. Life happens. Simply ask for them to excuse you or pardon you and let them know that you have to either step away or to please give you a quick moment. And I highly suggest pushing mute, turning on the mute. Let me back up, pushing the mute button and turning off that camera, tending to whatever extenuating circumstance you have, and then jumping right back on, right? Jumping right back on, telling them thank you for excusing you for that moment, and jump right back into the interview. Don't make a big deal out of it. It happens, and because we're all in a virtual environment, they understand that some parents have some virtual learning going on. There are, in some cases, pets and things like that. And if for any reason you aren't able to get to the library and take that call where you know that there'll be minimum distractions, it just kind of comes with the territory. So just take care of that and jump right back in, okay? Next thing, we talked about you interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. Well, here I want you to make sure that you ask them questions, right? Ask them questions. And I have 3 here actually that you can springboard off of if that works for you. You want to first, of course, ask them, what would you like to see accomplished in the first 90 days of the job? What do you want to see accomplished? That way, you know what to expect of you. You know the capacity it is that you have and what it is that you're actually willing to do. That gives you a good instance there, getting that feedback from them. The second one for as a suggestion for you is, what does the training process consist of? Right? So it lets you know what you have in place for your success and what you'll need, and then what you need to prepare yourself with to fill in the gaps, right? Because there's an expectation on you there as well. The last one here that I'm offering for suggestion is, what metrics do you use to measure success or progress? That is hugely important that you have a gauge. That way you can manage yourself in the work it is that you do, the effort it is that you put forth towards some things versus the other, prioritizing, etc. Now remember, these are only suggestions. You definitely want to sit down and come up with your own, right? So that it really gives you the confidence it is that you need when you start that interview. And then, of course, it shows that you're prepared and that you've done your research on the company and that you want to know about them just as they want to know about you. Okay? All righty. So let's take a look here at professional attire. All righty, professional attire. Now, as a general rule, you don't want to have anything below the collarbone, right? Anything lower, than the collarbone. It should be covered. It should be covered. So no deep V-necks or low-cut tops. A tie is good. Blazers, sport coats, those work wonderfully. And then you want to make sure that there's minimal prints on the tops, right? And I definitely get that sometimes people can wear the leopard or some colors here or there, but we just want to make sure that it's minimal. Again, this is a general rule of thumb. and just something for you to go by. And then you want to make sure, and this may be something you haven't thought about, but be sure that those nails are clean and manicured. If you're anything like me, you talk with your hands. And while you may not be excessive and don't want to be excessive with that, we're not robots. We don't talk with our hands to our side, even virtually. So we tend to get more passionate about certain responses. We tend to lean in to show our interest around a topic, and those things often comes as a prompt to move our hands. When they come up and they come across the camera, we just want to make sure that they're clean and well manicured. And that's something you can do right in the comfort of your home, right? All righty. So I think that really covers just about everything. This was a quick presentation to get you on track, boost that confidence, and get you ready for that virtual interview in this virtual environment. And I wish you all the success. I do want to ask that if you have any questions at all, please do reach out to the library. They are an amazing resource and are ready to fill any questions it is that you have about anything it is that you've seen on this presentation and beyond. Thank you so much for your time. Be well.
For additional in-depth video classes on interview preparation, use your library card to access lynda.com. On the Frisco Public Library's website, just select Digital Library and then select the Learning icon to find lynda.com. All the video courses are on demand and cover topics such as using Zoom, Microsoft Teams, accessing the hidden job market, optimizing your resume, and so much more. Thank you